Okay, this is DataMap looking at the interventions. So I kind of wanted to go through the intervention portion of it because a lot of our districts are not utilizing it, or they did at first. Looking through some of them, they were using them for RIMPs and um, RTI and things like that, and everything is outdated. So I kind of want to show um, the process of how the interventions work in DataMap. I am not going to go through the process of RTI or MTSS, but again, the process of creating the interventions and how it could be helpful for teachers. So the first thing I'm kind of going to navigate, then we're going to look at the admin part of it and then actually creating the interventions. So when we're looking at it, there is an actual intervention search. So it's its own search. If I'm looking down here, I can pick by my subject area, if it is a subject specific intervention or if it's a different type of intervention, such as behavioral, etc. Then the programs that I create are going to be listed. So I can have those programs in here. This is a demo database. A lot of it is outdated. You can see they still have the RIMP in here where we actually have a whole breakout session of RIMPs. Um, so the intervention itself wouldn't be used. Um, if it's referred by a certain person, you can pick by the individual teacher. What tier? So it does break it down into our three different tiers, 1, 2, and 3. So you can look specifically for that. And then you can break it down by student information. Do you have a specific student you're looking for? Um, are they on a RIMP? So the RIMP would have to be in the system. Are you looking for a specific class? Now, everybody on here is admins, but a teacher, they would only have access to their students, whereas admins would have access to the full building and or the district. And then I can search for it. So if I want to search, I'm going to search my reading mastery. I'm going to hit find. It is going to show me all the students that are on that RIMP. Okay. And again, this is just jumbled data, so it's not going to make a lot of sense, but I can see any of my students in here. And then I can go through and edit, etc. So that's one way to see some of the RIMPs. So another way is if I'm looking at my student screen, so I can look at all my students, there is a column to show me all of this, if a student is on a RIMP or not, or I'm sorry, an intervention or not. So if I click on my intervention, I can sort by the intervention column and it's going to show me those students. So again, it's just a quick way to see if that student has an intervention. So if I look at Liala here, if I click on her, you can see inside of her roadmap then is going to be any current interventions. So this one is active. Then if I click on the three dots, it's going to show me any additional interventions that she has been on, whether the current school year or previous school years, it will show those listed here. And then it'll show when they have exited and the reason. So again, those are just some ways that you can see if students are on interventions. So now let's look at the admin portion of this. So if I go into admin, there are two different areas that we need to work with our interventions. The first is setting up our programs. So if I click on my programs, you may or may not have them, depending on if something was done in the past. So if you don't have them, a little message box and it says no programs to display. If I click on my drop down arrow, it's going to show me any that has been created. Okay. Now, when we are creating an intervention, okay, so it's very simple. So this is our intervention program. So um, this is what the student is going to be connected to. This is the name that teachers will see, admins will see. This is going to be what they're going to be what intervention program they're a part of. So it's important that you're naming this something that everybody knows. So I'm going to make it active. And then if it is subject specific, it will populate the subject line. Are you guys still seeing my screen? Okay. So then once I pick my subject specific, I'll pick my subject area. So if this is for reading, and then this is it. We're just naming it. We're, picking what type of intervention it's going to be. And then again, if it is subject specific, we're going to pick what subject area. So I'm going to hit save. So that's the easy part. So you could probably go through and, make several of these, if you have reading and English and math and etc. The next part is the difficult part. If you want to actually use a template. So this is if you have information that you want people to fill out. Okay. So I'm going to do an example here. So what does that mean? So I am going to create an intervention for Orby here. So I'm going to click on my add intervention and we'll go through adding this. But when you look here, these fields are all blank. Okay. Based on what intervention you pick, okay, and what tier you decide it is, will determine what is going to populate here. So if I go to something like my reading mastery and then tier 2, you can see it populates stuff that somebody's going to type in. Okay. So you can use tables, you can just have headings, things like that. But your template is setting up for others to use. Unfortunately, so if I go to tier 1, there's no template. If I go to tier 2, it populates the template for me. So it's based on the program and the tier. Okay. The thing that you can't do is you cannot change these headings. So there's always an area of need, your goal, progress monitoring, and exit summary. So those cannot be changed, but what is put in them is controlled by the template. So if I go to my admin and then manage intervention templates, any template that has been created is going to be listed here. Okay. So for example, the program Reading Mastery that we just looked at, you can see here, okay, it's called RM and it's associated with tiers 2 and 3, but not 1. So I can create a different template for a tier 1 than my tier 2 and my tier 3. And then you can see some, and again, we wouldn't be using these for WEPs. We have, most people are using same goal to create their WEPs. Again, this is outdated information, but, this is associated with all 3 tiers. So it doesn't matter what's picked, it will populate the correct template. Okay. So if I'm just going to edit this one, but if you wanted to create a new template, you would click on add. I'm going to go in to modify this one that we're working on and click on the edit pencil. So there are 2 tabs that you are going to work with, the content and then the programs. So again, the content is going to have those 4 areas, the area of need, the goal, progress monitoring, and your exit summary. Okay. So I can put whatever I want in here, whatever I need. So they used a table. So if I click on here, I have basic formatting. Okay. So for example, maybe this is too much. I don't want all this information. I'm going to remove this. Um, Come on. There we go. Okay. So then I can start adding in information. So maybe you're going to collect parent signatures or you want a teacher signature and you're just going to create a signature line. Okay. So it's as simple as that. And as soon as the the intervention template is picked, this information is going to automatically populate. So again, basic formatting, there's not a whole lot, but it does allow you to create the table if you want things lined up, which could be good for your progress monitoring. There is nothing that imports from DataMap into the progress monitoring area, so it is all manual entry. So then again, our goals, same thing. I have the same formatting that I can populate. You can change colors, so maybe you don't want the actual table, but you want, you can, change the colors of things. So maybe your school colors red, you can have these red, and then the teacher would be typing in black. Okay. So again, you have those 4 areas, the content areas. You can create what you want in them. Could be something very simple. It could be a statement from your district, whatever you need for that template to have. Then you're going to save it. And I'm going to move on to my program. This is where you are picking the specific program. So in the dropdown, it's going to have all those program names that you created. Again, this is what is seen in the intervention itself, or when a teacher is searching for a student. So this name itself doesn't matter. It doesn't go anywhere. It is just for your reference. It is the program name that is important. Then you can see here, I can pick the program and then what tiers. So reading mastery is going to go towards tier 2 and tier 3. So if I want to link another program, I can. So maybe this is going to be my MTSS and it's only going to go towards tier 1. I cannot overlap. Okay. So I can't have, I can't have this for tier 2 for both of these. It doesn't allow you to overlap, but I can have the 2 different programs with the different tiers. And then once I am good, I'm going to hit save. So we're going to look at this by adding it to a student. So there's multiple ways that you can add a intervention to a student. So you can search for a student. Okay, I'm just going to click on one of my students. I'm going to get Orby here. So if I click on Orby, I can click on intervention right here. So once I click on this, if I come in here, if I click my tier 1 or my MTSS in a tier 1, it's going to populate that information. But if I go to tier 2, it's going to be blank. Now, if I go to my reading mastery, tier 2 is going to have the template and tier 1 will not. Oops. Okay. So that's how those templates work. It's based on what program you're picking and then what tier it is associated with. So keep that information in here. Your provider should be your teachers at your school. So you'll see those listed there. So let me find Linda, who they were referred by. So this is who's providing who they were referred by. So we'll say Tina referred. Sessions per week, minutes per session, then your referral date. Okay, sometimes this is the first day of school. It might be, a week into school, it might be, midway. So whatever the referral date is. So we'll just say they were referred after semester break, and then when they're actually going to start. So this might be the same, it might be different. And then it's going to be an active status. So these fields cannot be edited until the intervention is saved. So even though it populates that template, I can't type anything in it. So because this is the important information. So now once I scroll down, I'm going to click on save and you can see I edited that exit summary. I'm going to click on save. Oh, it's required. Sorry, missed that one. Okay. Now I can come in here and I can type my areas of need. Okay. And then I can go through, modify, add what I need to add. If I have to add in more details. Okay. So it lets me add, I can modify any of the tables. If something was spelled wrong, I can edit that, whatever I need to do. I can add my own tables. So that's kind of how it's created. What else you can do is add attachments. So if you have documentation, you have progress monitoring charts, things like that, you can add attachments. So you can choose a file and then click on upload, and those are going to be listed here. So it will show that the intervention does have the attachment. The second way to create interventions is by going to your student list. So maybe you are going to pull this in for your third grade students. Again, if you have admin access like you do, you're going to see all the students. So you might have to narrow it down. A teacher would be able to see their class. So if I pull in Linda, where's my Linda? I really should pick somebody with an A last name. And I want to look at her reading class. I can pull in just her reading class. So if these are the students that I'm going to be working with, I can select the students that are going to have the same intervention. Notice I said the same intervention because when I'm adding an intervention this way, um, it does have to have matching information until you do the first save and then it separates it out. So once I check them, you will see it populates a button that says add intervention. Click on that. So it's saying that I have 3 students that are going to get this top information. So if I want to see those 3, I can see those 3. So I can then pick my program. So my reading mastery, it's going to be a tier 2, who the provider is, numbers per week, if they're going to go twice, if they have a referral date, I'm just going to use a close date. Okay. And then again, notice you cannot edit the bottom area until it is saved. Okay, so we have it. All of this has to be the same for all 3 students. Then once I click on save, okay, it's created those. So if I go and want to look at these 3 students, I'm going to go here to my interventions. So here is Alvarez. And I probably passed him. My scroll is not working. Where's Bishop? There's Bishop. So you can see they've all been created. So now let's look at editing them. So that's how you create them. Now we can edit. One of the ways is from our intervention menu. So I can come in here, hover over it, and I can click to edit. So now I can come in here and now I can make the individual modifications. So maybe she's a little bit different than those other 3. Maybe she's only going for 20 minutes because she's leaves for band or something extra. So you can then adjust each individual student once they're created in bulk, and then you can start adding that information. Okay, and I can save it, etc. Okay. Another way is I can come to my roadmap, search for my student, and then if I click, I'm sorry, that was my home screen. I want to go to their roadmap. So now once I'm here, I can see her intervention has been created. So then if I hover over it over here, I can click on the little drop down and I can view and edit it. So once I click in there, I can come in and I can modify as needed. So next is looking at printing. So there are 3 different ways that you can print. So when I'm looking at this, okay, if I hover over with the little drop down arrow, I have the ability to print. I also have the ability to delete from within the roadmap. So I can do all 3: view, edit, delete, and print. If I then go to my intervention screen, to my interventions, if I hover over it, I have the ability to view, edit, print, and delete. However, when I'm in the document itself, I do not have the ability to delete. So you have to delete it outside of having the document open. So if I do want to delete the intervention, and I don't know if everybody has access to this, it might only be admin. So I would have to research that. But it'll confirm, are you sure that you want to delete this record? I click OK and hit delete, and it is now gone. It is not recoverable once it is deleted. So you can see here on my intervention screen, I can search. So if I want to look at just my reading, my math, etc., I can look at that. So if I want to pick a program, I can pick the program. Remember, it's the program name that's important. So there's my reading mastery. It doesn't matter what template you call it, that doesn't display anywhere. And then if I say find, there's my math interventions. A nice little piece too. So I'm going to switch real quick to GradeBook. Let me go into Linda's class. Sorry, the demo is very slow. Very, very slow. So if I am looking at Linda's gradebook, we added to her reading 3 class. So what the teacher then will see, they're going to see a little paper. It looks like a Google Doc. And it'll say, so we added it to fill up here. And if I hover over it, it says the student has an intervention. So then you'll see, well, who's Giles, however you say his name. If I hover over his, it says he has a RIMP. And then a student can have both. It'll say an active RIMP and an active intervention if they have both. So we have most of our districts use this disability alert to warn teachers that they have documents in SANE goals. So if there's an IEP 504, gifted documents, so they might see this. So they're used to seeing different icons. So if you're using the intervention piece, they'll now see it for the interventions as well as the RIMPs. Okay. And then the end of the year comes and you want to close out of a student's RIMP. So oops, I want to go back to my interventions. Okay. So Orby here, it's the end of the year. So I want to close out of his RIMP. I keep calling them RIMPs, intervention. I can click on the edit, scroll all the way down to the exit summary. If I need to put any details in here, I can. I can do the exit date, so it might be the last day of school, and then the exit reason, so end of the school year. And then I'm going to hit save. Am I sure that I want to close this intervention. I can confirm that. And his end of year status changes from active to end of year. Now, we did notice, actually, I was working with Molly. We did notice that a regular teacher status, they don't have, once the status is not active any longer, teachers don't have the ability to add or edit. They can only view. Admins can still edit. Obviously, you can see my cursor and I can edit. So just be aware of that when you are closing out. On here, you are not going to see, or up here, I should say, you're not going to see the close date. It would be down here, but when I go to my intervention screen, I will see or be listed here. So here's the start date. And then if I scroll over, it's going to have his exit date and the reason. Now you're thinking, oh, well, if we put all these kids on interventions, I don't want to have to go through one by one to close them. And you can see here, like Lois has multiple interventions. So, one might be behavioral, one might be for reading. So, and that could be very normal. So if I want to close maybe this one, okay, maybe it's a change of plan. Maybe she's going from a tier 2 to a tier 3. So I want to close this one. Okay. But I can close multiples at a time. So if I select multiple interventions, notice I now have a button that says exit the intervention. So, or maybe all these kids are moving from a 2 to a 3. So I can add a new intervention, but I can exit in bulk. I can click exit. It is going to ask me for the date and the reason. And then I do have the ability, and this will go to all the students that I have checkmarked. Okay. Please note that if you are doing it this way and the student intervention already contained an exit date, an exit reason, and any information in the summary area, it will override it. So this new information will go to that student. So if I hit save, and then if I look at Lois here, you will see that it has this new date, and it was the end of the year. And again, if I go back into her roadmap, it's only going to show the active interventions. But if I click on the 3 dots, it's going to show any that have been closed. So that is why it is important to close them at the end of the school year. So then the next year, the staff, teachers, admins will only see those active ones. Any questions?